So my name is Kaylyn. If you're new, I'm really glad that you're here today. Whoever you are so welcome here. And I just wanted to talk to you today if you have ever felt like God hasn't answered some of your prayers, or if you just feel like you've been waiting on God for an answer to a certain prayer for a long time. I by no means am claiming that I know and understand all the mysteries of God, but I just have been thinking about this and I just wanted to share some things that I have learned about God and how He answers prayers. Let me know if you agree. Also, I'd love to hear down in the comments some unexpected ways God has answered prayers in your life. Okay, I have a few different thoughts about this topic, but one I just have to say is that I think we can all agree is that God always surprises us with how He answers prayers. So many times in our head, we like to play out how we want God to answer our prayer and just the specific way in which we think He should provide for us. And so many times things go in such different ways. In John 16, Jesus Himself, He says, "Truly, truly, I say to you, whatever you ask of the Father in my name, He will give it to you. Until now you have asked nothing in my name. Ask and you will receive, that your joy may be full." And also in the Bible it says that we have not because we ask not. So God wants to answer our prayers. God wants to bring us joy, and it even says that Him answering our prayers brings us joy. But it also says in James that you ask and do not receive because you ask wrongly to spend it on your passions. So there are a few different things that I want to touch on this, but the first important thing is that God does want to answer our prayers. God is all ears. He knows every thought before it's been thunk, before it's passed through our head. He knows the depths of our hearts. He made us, and He made us in His image, meaning we are very much like God Himself, which is crazy. But in the same regard, He is God, He is almighty and powerful. But I think that it's really important for us to understand as believers that God does love us and He does care about what's in our hearts. He really does, even the little things. If you do need some extra encouragement on this topic, I recently shared about how God provided for us and how He provided this new home that I'm sitting in right now for us. And that particular answer to prayer really blew me away because it was so much of what we had really wanted and asked God for. But I'm not really talking about that today. I'm not really talking about when He answers those things perfectly, because I've had so many times in my life where things just go differently. I'm going to share one example with you right now that happened like a month ago. We have had a lot of things going on recently in our family, and I was recently, if you've been following my pregnancy, I was recently under the care of a midwife and planning to deliver at a birth center, and she was not covered by my insurance, so we had to pay out of pocket for that birth. And that was a struggle for us to do. We have not been in the financial position where we have just a ton of money saved up and are able to pay for this birth. That's just our situation right now. So that was kind of weighing on us and something that we had been trusting the Lord with and felt like He was taking care of. It was about $5,500 and we had about half of it paid for. And about a month or two ago when this was going on, I think it was probably 2 months ago actually, there's so many financial things going on. You know, we were considering moving and that was going to cost a good amount of money. But my husband had prayed and really felt like the Lord said, the birth is going to be paid off by the next appointment, which was like a week away, and that was a few $1,000s, which we did not have. That gave me a lot of hope. I didn't know how it was going to happen, but I wanted to believe it was true. So you would think that maybe you would get a check for that amount of money and it would be paid off that way, or just somehow that would all be paid off, right? It turns out that what happened in that week and everything that transpired, God had led us to switch our care to a more traditional hospital doctor setting because of the different things that was going on in my pregnancy. And we were actually paid up until that point in the prenatal care that I was receiving from the midwife. So actually all the care we had received was paid off at that next appointment, and we did not have to pay her anything past that point. But that was not in our mind. We thought that we'd continue care with her, of course, and that we would still owe another $2,500. But God did not fail us. He was not wrong. It was true that it would all be paid off at that appointment. It was just that the amount that we had owed had been changed because we're not continuing care with that woman. Fortunately, everything is covered under this new route that we are going right now through our insurance and everything. So we have very minimal to pay at this point in regards to the birth. So it's just so funny to me. I just thought that was so comical how God had said, oh, it's all gonna be paid off at the next appointment. And we're thinking, okay, thousands of dollars. But nope, He just had other plans for our care, and that's how it was all paid off at that point. So that is just one example I have in that regard of how we expect things to go one way and then they often go another way. Another little story I want to share in regards to moving. My family has moved in the last 3 years 3 times. Every year we have moved for different reasons. And I'm gonna jump back 3 years ago when I was pregnant with my first daughter, Elia. I'm now 35 weeks with my second daughter. But we were in this tiny 1-bedroom in this beautiful old house. It's this 100-year-old home, which is really old for the area that we live in. We're in California. And we lived in a portion of the house. It was our first place together after we got married. And it was really cute and kind of quirky and old school, but it was a perfect situation for us in those first 2 years of marriage. But when we got pregnant, there are these narrow stairs that were our stairs that we had to go up to get to our place. And after the landlord found out that we were pregnant, she was just concerned about that. And she kind of just implied that it'd be best if we looked somewhere else, mostly for safety concerns. But either way, we were fine with that because it kind of would be a struggle to have a baby in that place. It was just a very, very small 1-bedroom. That means I was pregnant and we were looking for a place. This recently just happened like a month ago, so it's kind of funny to talk about the story. I'll link that other one down below if you want to watch it. But as I've mentioned too in our recent little testimony, it's so hard to find a place in our area. And we were just having a hellish time looking for a place. This kind of goes into how amazing this place has been for us and how we got this place, because we just had the worst time looking for a place and there was just never that peace or clear direction. After we found out that I was pregnant and that we were going to move, like we needed to move, I kind of put these demands and expectations on God. And I just want to talk about that because I feel like we do that a lot with prayer. We just have these expectations from God of what He needs to do for us. And that's what I did to him, and I regret it in my heart. I don't think that's right, but God really led us to get pregnant, and the whole story of how we conceived our daughter. God told us the month that we were going to conceive our daughter, and all these things happened, and it was a big faith stretch for us personally where we're at in our lives. When we really felt God leading us to get pregnant, we weren't ready at that point. So the fact that we got pregnant the month that God said we would and all this happened, I was kind of like, okay, God, now you need to hold up your end in this, and you need to get us a 2-bedroom. And I was also... It sounds so terrible. I'm just being honest and being blunt with how I express it. But I was also kind of demanding that my husband get a new job towards God. Like, God, you need to provide my husband with a better job. And you guys, guess what? He still has the same job 5 years later that he had then. And God has still provided for our family. But I just had these demands. I think a lot of it was revolving around fear, fear of our needs being met and our family and becoming a parent and all these life changes. And I just wanted him to provide us a new home and a new job to have that sense of security. It really wasn't in God. So we looked for a new house for a few months, and my husband was looking for a new job for a few months too. And there was just so much stress around the situation. When there's so much stress and fear, God may not be a part of that. I'm sharing this story because I'm talking about how God answers our prayers and what kind of expectations we put on him and the kind of prayers we're praying to begin with, My point is, I was praying, I was asking God for these things, but God just wasn't in the prayers that I was praying. It's not like I was a horrible and reasonable person for wanting a bigger place. I mean, we did have to move and for wanting my husband to get a different job, but God just had other plans. And I think what can help us discern that, like if God's part of something or if he's not, is if we have peace. That has always been a big kind of guidepost for me in my walk with God, is where my heart feels peace, where it feels at rest. I'm not talking about what makes sense in our heads, because a lot of times what God has for us won't make sense fully in our heads, but I feel like in our hearts, if we really strip away the fear, there is that sense of peace, and we did not have that in this time of our lives at all. But long story short, we looked at multiple places and everything, no doors were opening and everything just felt so forced. And my husband and I were just on a walk, and the Lord often speaks to me while I'm talking to others. It's like it just comes out of my mouth, but it's new to me for the first time. Let me know if that happens to you. It's not like my thoughts and emotions were there first. I just started kind of prophesying over ourselves, and the words that were coming out of my mouth was that God had somewhere else for us to live, that we were asking him for a place in this certain town. I just felt like that was not our landing spot. It might have seemed like a given because that's where we're at, but it just clicked that we were not supposed to be in that town, that God had for us to move outside of that town. And there was a specific town that I just knew was the town we were supposed to live in. It was over an hour away. We've never lived there. It was nearby to where my husband worked, so it would be a lot closer to his work, which he would commute to like twice a week. He works partly from home, partly from an office. But we had absolutely no family there, we're about to have our first baby. We're going to be further from our family. A lot didn't make sense, but to us, it just jived. It just clicked, and it wasn't as instant for him. He had to pray about it, but the Lord did confirm to him that that's what was next for us. And yeah, we were able to look at places there, and there wasn't like a huge grand story of how God opened a door like he did for our new place here 3 years later. But there was grace and there was peace. There was that peace in our hearts. And we were away from family that first year of my daughter's life, but it was such a good year for our family, just being away and kind of solidifying ourselves in that new season of parenthood. And I think it was really healthy for us for different reasons. For instance, my husband, he loves to go meet with people a lot and get coffee and make connections. And he's always offering to help other people. And I don't know, he's just always doing so many different things. And I think especially for him, it was so good for him to kind of be away from that, to be able to focus on our family and not get distracted. I think it was really helpful for him. There are a number of other reasons too why it really benefited our family to be there for that season. But it just clicked, and we were praying, we were asking God for one thing, and he was not opening that door. It was just not happening. So God knew what we needed, but we were praying for the wrong things. And that's just what I want to ask you today. If you feel like he's not answering your prayer, maybe he's just not focused on that in your life right now. Maybe you're so focused on finding a spouse right now, but maybe God's just not concerned with that right now. If that person is not there in your life, God is not freaking out about that like you are. That's not where his heart is for you. God is not worried about you finding a spouse. He cares and he knows what he has for you in your future, and it's good. And you don't have to worry. There's something else that he wants to be doing with you right now. Also, if you're in the middle of a decision or something like I just described, where we're trying to figure out where we're going to live, and there's just not peace, I just suggest just stop. Just step back and stop forcing the pieces to fit. Sometimes God wants to shift us in a totally different direction. Like, we're looking here for him to answer a prayer, and he's doing something over here. And we just need to step back, let go, and be open. And I just want to suggest that too. I've definitely been learning to do that more. I feel like different circumstances like this have happened, and I've kind of recognized that more. My husband is a great helper and will help me recognize that too when we're just trying to force things too much. Another thing too to consider is timing. So many times just the timing is off, and he wants us to wait. God is really big on us waiting on him. And it is so hard for us to do, especially if we like to control things that aren't so easygoing. It's so hard to wait sometimes. But so many times it's just a matter of my memory card died on my camera, so I'm on my phone now. But like with this new place, we were waiting past what made sense or would be logical or comfortable for most in regards to moving. I was about 8 months pregnant when God gave us this new place, and we were holding on to hope that he would provide a place for us, but we could have forced the pieces with something else. We could have made something else work and just jumped into something. But I truly believe so many times we intercept things in our lives out of fear of God not coming through. We take control and we just jump for something because we're so afraid that God won't provide something better or that he won't come through. So I just want to encourage you, if there's something you're waiting for, just keep waiting, keep being open, and keep letting go and seeing if you're kind of in line with God, or if he's doing something else. You know what I mean? Touch base with him, touch base with your heart, and see if you're trying to force things to fit too much, or if there is that peace and that sense that God is doing this and God is a part of your plan. I promise you, God has something for you. God cares about what's on your heart, and he knows you, and he sees things so much more comprehensively than we do. Our views are so little. If you just think about little ants, they can only see right in front of them, and that's how we live our lives. Our noses are buried in our emotions and wanting to fix things and solve things. But God sees such a bigger picture, and he cares about our good, and he works things out for the good of us who love him, which is amazing. We can trust him. Just be willing to let go of the things you're holding on to, and just keep seeking after him and trusting that he loves you and has your best interest in mind, because you are his precious child, and he absolutely does. So yes, I'd love to hear how God has answered some of your prayers in unexpected ways. And also, if there's anything you're praying for, really asking God for right now, I would love to come in agreement with you and just say a prayer for you as well. So feel free to leave that down below in the comments. I hope this video was an encouragement to you. I love you all so much. I hope you have a beautiful day, because you are absolutely worth it. And I'll see you in my next video. Bye.